Today I'm going to paint a blueberry pie.
Hi friends, I'm Olga Koelsch, watercolor artist, teacher and a book author. Welcome to my studio.
First of all, let's make a drawing. Diagonal line, the crust, bottom line, and then it will be the slice, but we can see the crust on top. And let's just connect all those points. And inside, underneath this crispy crust, there will be this blubbery gelée or blubberies. And to make it easier for us, I will just add some shapes. I will place the slice on a plate, but plate would not be that important. I'm not going to paint it into details. I would like to add maybe 1 or 2 blubberies, fresh ones around. Let's firstly paint the crust. Paints like burnt sienna, raw sienna, all your warm earthy tones will be great. Start with the light ones. And you already can apply this mix with some tipping moves of your brush. That will help you to set up that idea of a crust, because it's never flat, always have some texture on it. So you keep applying, jumping, dancing with your brush, especially on the side next to the slice. Then I will grab my burnt sienna, maybe even burnt umber, much darker one. I will add just a couple of spots here and there. I will use raw sienna. I want to add a little bit of gumbosh, make it just brighter. And while the texture is wet, I will add couple of details with my brush, basically just wet and wet, random strokes. And I will always also add the crust, which I can see, a little bit of the crust, which I can see on the back, and of course in the bottom, very thin one in the bottom. Now it's time to add blueberries. If you have some bright purple, that's great. Or you can mix, for example, ultramarine blue with quinacridone rose. What's important when we paint this gelée, this confiture inside, it has a very glossy texture, which means we have to leave a lot of white areas. Confiture usually mixes with the crust that create very typical slice. So right now I just paint, leaving a lot of white areas, and also I try to touch this crust we created already. Maybe right here was a bit too much, but let's see. A bit of variety with the help of my pinks to this. Try to keep this uneven. I can add a little bit of ultramarine blue for a colder touch, like this. Ultramarine blue will add this blubbery feeling, and don't forget to leave just white space around. Now I see that a lot of my purples went into the crust, so I just wash my brush. I grab my yellow, and I go once again on top. This. can also add a bit of texture now to the bottom. I can use my paper towel for the top part to lift up and create more natural texture. And now it would be nice to create a really dark border inside. So I use my purple, very dark purple, step aside a little bit from the crust and add even darker purple, like this. I can do a fun trick, imagining that part of blueberries just got out of the pie, run into the plate. That happens very often. Ultramarine blue to paint those berries. So I leave a spot on the top. I cover berries with very light ultramarine blue. I'll make one both looking in different directions. Very light. And also using the same ultramarine blue, but very light one, I will add a little bit of plate idea, basically just a round shape without big details. A bit of shadow underneath the slice, like this. Let it all mix, be round. And the border of the plate, just a bit. We focus on this area. I don't paint what's happening on the background. Now berries are dry. I can add a bit more of darker ultramarine blue, even indigo if you have also would be great. Like this, couple of dots. Leaving a lot of these very light blue. Then I wash my brush, dry it with a paper towel and soften. And of course berries, if we have berries, they also create some shadow. So I'm back to my grayish whatever mix and I add a bit of shadow underneath. What would be nice as a final touch to add some bright mint leaves. I have sap green, and then with the tip of the brush I imagine those leaves lie just next to the pie. Firstly, with the tip of the brush I paint the middle vein, and then I attach brush strokes one to another, creating this very typical mint leaves texture. Again, just placing brush strokes one to another. Would be nice to add more of yellow, like this. Bit of another leaf hiding behind the pie. Leaf to the middle. I think one leaf would be nice here. I'm just really improvising, looking what my paint suggests me. One more leaf. Always nice to start with the middle vein if you paint without a drawing, and then create this. And as a final touch, let's add with our darkest indigo, for example. Indigo, I grab it right from the pan to get it really dark. This middle part of blueberries, where usually the flower was, just like this. It looks like crown a little bit, So I add details, I add a bit more shadow, dividing those two guys. And of course I can always wash my brush, dry it with a paper towel, soften a little bit. Soften a little bit. We paint very loose. It's nice to keep texture flowing, extend the shadow like this. Check the pie. If it is completely dry, you can add even more of darker spots, or just leave. What would be fun to do, just grab a bit of purple and imagine there is some break in the crust and some blueberries got on the surface. And our blueberry pie is ready.
Thank you so much for painting with me. I hope you enjoyed the process. I'm looking forward to see your feedback. What would you like to paint next? And see you soon. Bye bye.